Welcome to Veiled Narratives, where love, destiny, and the most unexpected moments weave into stories that touch the soul. Today's tale begins with a single mistake. An innocent photo, a late-night message, and a reaction that would change two hearts forever. Let's begin. Amara Khan never imagined that one wrong tap could change her life. It was a quiet Sunday night in her small apartment, the city lights flickering beyond her window as she worked late on her laptop. She was exhausted, hair tied up messily, dressed in her soft gray pajamas, the kind she wore when no one was watching. Half asleep, she meant to send a cozy selfie to her best friend Zara, complaining about the never-ending workload. But her sleepy fingers betrayed her. The photo went instead to Ryan Hale, the billionaire CEO of the company she freelanced for. Panic struck immediately. Her heart raced. Ryan Hale, the man every employee feared and admired, known for his cold perfectionism. His name alone carried weight in the corporate world. Amara froze, staring at her phone screen as the delivered check appeared. Moments later, her breath caught when the typing indicator appeared below his name. She wanted to vanish, to disappear into thin air. Her mind spun with horror. Her messy bun, her pajama shirt with tiny cartoon clouds, her makeup-free face. She wasn't ready to face him like this. Then came his reply. "Comfort suits you better than stress, Miss Khan." Her eyes widened. Was he joking? The words carried warmth, a soft amusement so unlike the man she'd seen in board meetings. She apologized 100 times, typing frantically, but he replied again. "No need to apologize. It's refreshing to see something real for once." That one mistake became the spark. A doorway into a version of Ryan Hale no one else had ever seen. The night was calm, the city humming faintly beyond Amara Khan's small apartment window. It was the kind of night meant for quiet thoughts and unfinished dreams. Her desk was cluttered with sketches, notes, and half-empty mugs, evidence of a designer who lived more in her imagination than in the world outside. She worked freelance for Hale Enterprises, a billion-dollar conglomerate that seemed galaxies away from her modest life. Her boss, Ryan Hale, was a name that carried power and precision. The man whose signature could change destinies. But tonight, Amara wasn't thinking about billionaires or deadlines. She was just tired, eyes heavy, hair in a loose bun, wearing her favorite gray pajamas covered with tiny blue stars. As she leaned back in her chair, she snapped a playful selfie, her way of showing Zara, her best friend, how exhausted she looked after a 14-hour design sprint. The caption was supposed to be, "Still alive somehow," except fate had its own plans. Her sleepy eyes didn't notice that instead of Zara, her phone had auto-suggested another contact, Ryan Hale. The message sent instantly, the world seemed to freeze. For a moment, Amara didn't breathe. Her thumb hovered over the screen as her heartbeat drummed in her ears. Her mind screamed at her to unsend it, delete it, vanish. But it was too late. The message had been delivered. The billionaire CEO of Hale Enterprises had just received a cozy photo of her in pajamas, hair messy, glasses slipping off, and the words, "Still alive somehow." Panic flooded her veins. She leapt from her chair, pacing wildly. "Oh my God! Oh my God! No, no, no!" she whispered, nearly tripping over a cushion. She grabbed her phone, opened the chat, and frantically typed, "Sir, I'm so sorry. That message wasn't meant for you. Please ignore it." Her pulse raced. Seconds felt like hours. What if he thought she was unprofessional? What if he fired her? What if this one silly mistake ended everything she'd worked for? She could already imagine the headline, "Freelancer fired for sending pajama selfie to CEO." And then, her phone buzzed. "Ryan Hale is typing." Amara froze, holding her breath. Then his message appeared, "Comfort suits you better than stress, Miss Khan." Her eyes widened. What did that even mean? Was that sarcasm? A compliment? Her heart didn't know how to react. She typed again, trying to explain herself. But before she could hit send, another message arrived. "Don't apologize. It's rare to see something genuine these days." Her mind blanked. Genuine. From the man who was rumored to run his empire like a machine. She didn't know whether to feel relieved or confused. Still, something about his words lingered, soft, unexpected, almost human. She replied cautiously, "I appreciate your understanding, Mr. Hale. It won't happen again." But his next response caught her completely off guard. "Let's hope not. I'd hate to miss another reminder that life exists beyond spreadsheets." A small smile tugged at her lips. Was he teasing her? Amara had seen Ryan only twice, once during a virtual meeting where he was all steel and silence, and once at an event where his eyes barely met hers. Yet tonight, through a mistake, she was seeing a version of him no one else probably ever had, warm, amused, and oddly kind. As the night deepened, she found herself still staring at her phone, reading his messages. She should have gone to sleep, but curiosity kept her awake. Who was Ryan Hale really? Behind the sharp suits and boardroom presence, there was now a man who smiled at a sleepy designer's accident. Meanwhile, miles away in his penthouse office, Ryan Hale sat alone. The city stretched beneath him like a sea of light. His phone rested in his palm, her message still glowing on the screen. He'd received thousands of emails, proposals, and presentations, but nothing had ever felt as real as that simple photo. He smiled faintly. Still alive somehow, he whispered, amused. The girl had spirit, raw, unpolished, alive. It reminded him of something he'd long lost: simplicity. He typed one more message before setting his phone aside. Good night, Miss Khan. Don't let work steal all your dreams. When Amara saw it, she felt a flutter deep inside. Something she hadn't felt in years. It wasn't about his status or power. It was about the tone. Gentle, personal, intimate in a way that defied logic. She placed her phone beside her pillow, smiling unconsciously. What a strange night, she whispered. Neither of them knew it yet, but that one accidental photo, a sleepy girl in her starry pajamas and a billionaire with walls around his heart, had just rewritten both their stories. Because sometimes, the universe doesn't wait for perfection. It just takes a small mistake to begin something unforgettable. The following morning, the city glowed under a gentle sunrise, and Amara still couldn't shake the events of the night before. She sat by her desk, staring at her phone, rereading Ryan Hale's final message. Don't let work steal all your dreams. The words felt tender, too sincere for a man known for iron discipline and emotional distance. In the world of Hale Enterprises, Ryan was a legend, calculated, brilliant, untouchable. And yet, that one text had revealed something human, something soft, something almost vulnerable. Amara tried to bury the thought and return to work. She told herself it was just politeness, a fluke, nothing more. But when her phone buzzed again that afternoon, her breath caught. It was him. Ryan, did you finish the concept sketches? Also, please tell me you got some sleep. She blinked at the screen, uncertain how to respond. It was the first time he'd mixed business with concern. Amara, sketches are done. And yes, I slept. Eventually. Ryan, good. The world runs better when creators rest. The conversation ended there, but something subtle shifted. Over the next few days his messages became more frequent. Sometimes about work, revisions, colors, design proposals. Other times quietly personal. Ryan, you have a rare eye for detail, Miss Khan. Do you see the world in sketches? Amara, sometimes. It's easier to draw emotions than explain them. Ryan, then maybe that's why your work feels alive. You draw what the rest of us forget to feel. Her heart trembled at his words. It was the kind of compliment no one had ever given her before. Not about beauty, but soul. They began exchanging messages late into the night, when the city grew quiet and confessions felt safe. He told her about his insomnia, how success could be the loneliest form of failure. She told him about her dreams, to open her own design studio, to create something meaningful. He listened. He encouraged. Sometimes he sent photos, not of boardrooms or luxury cars, but of simple things. A half-finished cup of coffee beside his laptop, the sunrise from his penthouse balcony, his golden retriever curled up on the floor beside a stack of unread books. Ryan, he's the only one who doesn't expect perfection from me. Amara, maybe because he already thinks you're perfect. Ryan, if only humans were that forgiving. That line stayed with her all day. For the first time, Ryan Hale didn't feel like a CEO. He felt like a man. And when Amara worked on her next presentation, she found herself wondering what made him laugh, what songs he liked, what his eyes looked like when they weren't guarded by power. At the office, whispers spread quietly. Assistants noticed Ryan smiling at his phone more often. He seemed softer, more patient, even kind. No one dared to ask why, but Amara knew. Their little digital world was growing roots. One night, after reviewing a design campaign, he sent another unexpected message. Ryan, do you always lose track of time when you work? Amara, always. It's the only way to forget the world for a while. Ryan, I envy that. My world never stops. She hesitated before typing Amara. Then maybe it's time you paused long enough to feel it. A pause. Then came his reply. Ryan, and maybe it's time you stopped hiding your brilliance behind apologies. Her heart fluttered. It wasn't flirtation. It was deeper, gentler, the way admiration slowly turns into affection. From that night on, their messages took a new rhythm. He'd send her quotes about art, and she'd reply with sketches inspired by them. Once she drew a quick sketch of a man standing on a balcony, gazing at a faraway city, his tie undone, his shoulders heavy. "Ryan, that's me." "Amara, I thought so." "Ryan, then tell me, Miss Khan, what does the artist see in that man?" "Amara, someone powerful enough to own the world, and lonely enough to never share it." Silence, then a single message. "Ryan, you see too much." She smiled to herself. Maybe she did, and though their lives remained miles apart, something unseen connected them, like two souls whispering across an invisible bridge built from shared vulnerability. Days turned into weeks. Amara began to look forward to the sound of her phone buzzing. Each vibration carried warmth, laughter, and sometimes, quiet understanding. Her nights were no longer lonely, they were filled with conversations that painted her heart in colors she'd forgotten existed. Yet, beneath every message, she carried a fear she never voiced. That when morning came, he would remember who he was, a man of billion-dollar empires, and she, a woman who lived in the corners of her creativity. But Ryan never pulled away. If anything, he leaned closer. He began to quote her words in meetings, defend her designs against executives, and once, when someone dismissed her idea, he'd said, "If Amara believes it will work, it will." It was no longer about messages, it was about trust, and one night just before she fell asleep, her phone buzzed again. "Ryan, funny, isn't it? One accidental photo, and now I can't go a day without wondering what you'll say next." Amara smiled into the darkness, her heart dancing quietly. She typed slowly, fingers trembling. "Amara, maybe it wasn't an accident, Mr. Hale. Maybe it was fate wearing pajamas." He didn't reply right away. But when he did, it was just one line, the kind that stays forever. "Ryan, then fate has impeccable taste." And just like that, what began as a mistake turned into something fragile, precious, and beautifully unstoppable. A connection that neither power nor distance could deny. The sky over the city blushed in shades of gold and violet as the evening descended. An hour that belonged to unspoken thoughts and hidden desires. Amara sat at her desk, lost in a swirl of emotions. Her phone buzzed softly, and when she picked it up, her heart skipped. "Ryan, tomorrow evening. Dinner with me. No business talk. I promise." For a long moment, she simply stared at the screen. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of something she hadn't dared to dream. Dinner with him. Her mind fluttered between disbelief and fear. Ryan Hale didn't invite people to dinner. He attended board meetings, not dates. He was the man who ruled from glass towers, not candlelit tables. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, unsure how to respond. Then another message arrived. "Ryan, before you overthink, it's just two people who enjoy talking. Let's not ruin a beautiful mistake." A small smile curved her lips. He knew her too well already. The next evening, Amara stood before her mirror, surrounded by uncertainty and the soft fragrance of jasmine perfume. Her reflection looked foreign. The shy designer now transformed into a vision of quiet elegance. She wore a flowing ivory dress, light as a whisper, her hair cascading in loose waves, a touch of blush warming her cheeks. But behind the beauty was a storm. What if I'm not enough? What if he regrets inviting me? Her phone buzzed again. A message from him. "Ryan, don't let nerves ruin perfection. You look beautiful already." Her breath caught. He hadn't even seen her. And yet, somehow, he always knew. The restaurant was nestled atop a private terrace overlooking the city skyline. Intimate, glittering, and surreal. Waiters moved like shadows, candles flickered in golden crystal holders, and soft piano music filled the air. When Ryan rose from his seat to greet her, time itself seemed to still. He wasn't the CEO she'd seen in magazines. Tonight he was just a man. No tie, no boardroom armor. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, revealing a hint of warmth beneath the surface of control. His gaze, deep and unreadable, softened when it met hers. "Miss Khan," he said quietly, "you look breathtaking." Her heart fluttered like the flame of a candle. "And you look less terrifying than usual," she teased, trying to hide her nerves. He chuckled, motioning her to sit. "I'll take that as progress." As the evening unfolded, the world outside disappeared. Their conversation flowed effortlessly, from art to childhood dreams, from colors to solitude. Ryan spoke of his late mother, who taught him that silence often says more than words. Amara shared how her father's old paintbrush was still her most precious possession. "I envy that," Ryan admitted softly. "Having something that reminds you where you began." Amara looked at him, really looked at him, and saw not a billionaire, but a man burdened by the weight of his own success. His eyes carried exhaustion behind the charm, a loneliness he never allowed the world to see. Maybe, she said gently, you've been looking at the finish line for so long, you forgot to see the beauty of the road. He leaned back, watching her like she had just spoken poetry. You have this way of saying simple things that feel like truth. She blushed. Maybe because no one ever listens long enough to hear them. He smiled, that rare, almost boyish smile. I'm listening now. The waiter brought dinner, delicate courses neither of them paid much attention to. Between laughter, stolen glances, and quiet pauses, they built something invisible yet undeniable. At one point, Ryan looked at her and said, "You know, I used to believe love was a distraction, that emotions made people weak. But tonight," he hesitated, his voice low, "you're making me question everything I thought I knew." Amara's breath hitched. She wasn't sure if it was the wine, the lights, or the way he was looking at her. But she felt her heart surrender a little. And then, as the night deepened, a soft drizzle began to fall outside the glass windows. The city shimmered beneath the rain, lights blurring into gold and silver streaks. Ryan stood and offered his hand. "Come with me." She took it hesitantly, and he led her to the open terrace. The rain brushed softly against their skin, cool and refreshing. For a moment the world was just them, two souls caught in a moment too beautiful to define. Amara laughed as droplets clung to her hair. "This is insane! We'll get soaked." Ryan smiled, watching her spin once beneath the drizzle, her laughter echoing like music. "Maybe," he said softly, "but some moments are worth getting drenched for." She stopped, meeting his eyes. The air between them thickened with something fragile, electric, undeniable. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. Then, slowly, Ryan reached out and tucked a strand of wet hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered for just a heartbeat longer than they should have. "Amara," he whispered, her name sounding like a promise. She didn't answer. She couldn't. Her heart was too full, too wild, too alive. For a moment, everything, his empire, her fears, the world outside, disappeared. All that remained was the rain, the city lights, and a feeling that didn't need words. When they finally returned inside, drenched and breathless, Ryan poured 2 glasses of wine and said quietly, "You have no idea what you've done to me, Miss Khan." Amara smiled faintly, her eyes glistening. "Maybe I do." And that night, for the first time, Ryan Hale, the man who ruled with logic, surrendered to something that made no sense at all: love. Morning arrived with the softness of sunlight kissing the skyline. But Amara's peace shattered before the day had even begun. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Notifications exploded like firecrackers, vibrating across the table. Groggy and confused, she reached for it, and froze. Her name, her face, everywhere. Headlines screamed in glossy bold, "Teach Billionaire Sasirat Momayan. Arwayan Helispitedu Wistar Disage Ener after your itimai denar." Underneath it, a photo. Her, laughing beside Ryan's car, hair glistening with rain, his hand resting protectively at her back. The moment that had felt like magic now looked scandalous. Her chest tightened. The article spread across every major network, and within hours, social media turned ruthless. Some called her a gold digger. Others accused her of seducing her boss. Anonymous accounts flooded her inbox with cruel messages. The world had taken something pure and twisted it into spectacle. When her phone buzzed again, it was Ryan. "Ryan, stay calm. Don't answer anyone. I'll handle this." But Amara's hands trembled. Her voice cracked as she called him. "Ryan, they're saying horrible things. They think Amara, breathe," he interrupted softly, his tone firm yet soothing. "Listen to me. You've done nothing wrong. You owe them no explanation." Tears gathered in her eyes. "But your reputation?" "I don't care about that," he said immediately. "You're what I care about." The silence that followed was heavy charged. His words were raw, real, unfiltered emotion from a man who had built his life around control. By afternoon, the media camped outside her apartment building. Cameras flashed every time she peeked from the curtain. Even her neighbors whispered. It was suffocating. She felt like the walls were closing in. When Ryan's car arrived downstairs, she almost refused to go. But something in his voice over the phone, steady, protective, made her gather her courage. The ride to his office was silent. Outside, chaos buzzed like a storm. Inside, Ryan Hale looked like calm incarnate, a storm hidden behind tailored composure. Yet Amara saw the tightness in his jaw, the fury in his eyes. in his penthouse office. He walked straight to the window, looking out at the city like a king betrayed by his own kingdom. "They think they can own my story," he said under his breath. "They can't." Amara stood quietly behind him. "Maybe it's better if I disappear for a while. Let this pass." He turned sharply. "Disappear?" His eyes met hers, piercing, hurt. "Do you think I'd let the woman who changed my life vanish because of gossip?" "Ryan." Her voice quivered. "You don't understand. You can survive this. I can't. I'm just a freelancer. People will never believe me." He stepped closer, the air between them tense, trembling with emotion. "You think this is about surviving? Amara, you're not just another name in my company. You're—" He stopped, struggling for words. His hands clenched. "You're everything they'll never understand." Her heart ached. "And what if they destroy your image because of me?" He gave a faint, almost broken smile. "Then maybe it's time the world saw me as a man, not a myth." The next morning, the scandal only grew louder. News anchors debated her worth, tabloids speculated on their secret affair. But then something no one expected happened. Ryan Hale, the untouchable billionaire, walked into his company's annual press conference with his head held high. Cameras flashed wildly as he took the podium. He didn't bring his PR team. He didn't read from a statement. He simply looked straight into the cameras and said, "The woman you've all been talking about isn't a rumor. Her name is Amara Khan. She is one of the most talented people I've ever met, and she's the reason I remember what it means to feel human again." The room fell silent. Reporters exchanged shocked glances. He continued, voice calm but heavy with emotion, "If the world wants a scandal, let them have it. But I won't stand by while someone I care about is torn apart for something beautiful." Amara watched from the side of the room, her heart pounding so hard she could barely breathe. He wasn't just protecting her, he was choosing her. When the conference ended, he walked straight to her. Cameras still flashed, but he didn't care. He took her hand, right there, in front of the world, and whispered, "No more hiding." She looked up at him through tears. "Ryan, you just risked everything." He smiled softly. "For the first time, it feels like the only thing worth risking." That evening, as the sun melted into the horizon, Amara found herself standing on his balcony once again. The same city that had once felt cruel now shimmered with possibility. Ryan joined her quietly, slipping an arm around her waist. For a while neither spoke. The air was calm again, peaceful, as if the storm had washed away all the falsehoods. Amara leaned her head against his shoulder and whispered, "You didn't have to do all that for me." "I didn't do it for you," he said softly. "I did it for us." She smiled faintly. "And what happens now?" He kissed the top of her head gently. "Now," he murmured, "we write our own story. No headlines, no lies, just truth." For the first time in her life, Amara felt weightless, as if love itself had given her wings strong enough to rise above every storm. Because love born from an accident had now become the one thing worth everything. The months that followed felt like a slow sunrise after a long, dark night. The noise of the scandal faded, and in its place, a quiet peace began to bloom. Amara had returned to her art, sketching in the sun-drenched corner of Ryan's penthouse, her favorite spot, overlooking the endless sea of city lights. The world outside still whispered about them sometimes, but inside, it no longer mattered. Here, there was warmth, laughter, and a love that had weathered the storm. Ryan stood by the balcony that evening, the golden dusk wrapping him in soft amber light. His usually sharp silhouette seemed softer now, more human. Amara watched him for a moment. The man who once belonged to headlines now looked like he belonged to her. He turned and smiled. "You're staring again." She laughed gently, her voice a melody in the fading light. "I'm just making sure you're real. Sometimes I still can't believe this happened." Ryan walked over, kneeling beside her as she sketched absent-mindedly. "You changed my definition of real," he murmured. "Before you, it was just work, deadlines, numbers. Now it's the sound of you humming in the kitchen." Amara smiled, brushing her fingers against his jawline. "And before you, my world was small. You made it feel infinite." He took her hand, pressing a soft kiss against her palm, a gesture both reverent and familiar. "Do you remember that first night?" he asked. "The pajamas, the accidental photo." Amara laughed, cheeks warming at the memory. "How could I forget? I wanted the earth to swallow me whole." "Funny," Ryan said, tilting his head, eyes glinting with quiet affection. "That was the first time I smiled in months. You sent chaos, and somehow, peace with it. She shook her head, playful yet tender. So are you saying you fell for my pajamas? He leaned closer, his voice a low whisper. I fell for the girl who wasn't trying to impress anyone. The one who looked real. For a moment their eyes locked, and the silence between them pulsed with 1,000 unspoken emotions. Later that night, the city turned silver under the moonlight. Amara stood by the balcony, her phone in her hand, scrolling through their old messages. The awkward start, the teasing replies, the heartfelt confessions that followed. Each message was a memory carved into time. With a nostalgic smile, she opened the chat window again. Amara, remember the first photo I sent you? Within seconds, his typing bubble appeared. Ryan, how could I not? The moment that ruined my focus forever. She grinned, biting her lip, and replied, Amara. Then maybe it's time I send another one. Intentionally this time. He didn't reply immediately, so she lifted her phone, switched to the front camera, and took a photo. Not of perfection, not posed or polished, just her, sitting barefoot by the balcony rail, wearing one of his shirts, hair messy from the wind, eyes glowing under the soft light. Behind her, the skyline glittered like 1,000 dreams. She sent it without hesitation. For a moment she just stared at the screen. Then the familiar sound, ding. Ryan, still the most beautiful mistake of my life. Her eyes softened. You know, she whispered to herself, sometimes the best things begin with an accident. A few moments later, he appeared behind her, silent as always. His arms slipped around her waist, pulling her gently against him. So that was a hint for me to take a picture too, he teased, resting his chin on her shoulder. She smiled. Only if you promise to keep this one private, he chuckled, brushing his lips against her temple. Not a chance. This one belongs in my favorites folder. The wind brushed past them, carrying the scent of rain and jasmine. The city below sparkled like a promise. Ryan, she whispered, do you ever wonder, what if I hadn't sent that photo? He paused, then turned her gently to face him. Then my life would still be perfect, he said quietly. Perfect, but empty. She looked into his eyes, those steel gray depths now softened with warmth. And now, he murmured, tracing his thumb along her cheek, "Who's imperfect and real, and I wouldn't trade that for the world." Her heart melted. She leaned in, closing the space between them until their foreheads touched. The world outside faded, the city, the noise, the past. All that remained was them, two souls who'd found love in the most unpredictable way imaginable. As the clock ticked softly in the background, Amara whispered, "You know, I've been thinking about how stories usually end. The girl meets the billionaire, they fall in love, and that's it. But ours, he finished, smiling, began with a typo and turned into forever." She laughed softly, tears glistening in her eyes. "Then promise me one thing. Anything. No matter how far life takes us, you'll never forget that the first time you saw me, I was in pajamas." He grinned. "Impossible. You made me fall in love with reality." She tilted her head, amused. "You make that sound poetic." He kissed her forehead, whispering, "You made my entire life poetic." And there, under the vast night sky, two people who came from different worlds finally felt complete, not because they were perfect, but because they had learned that love doesn't begin with logic, it begins with a moment, a mistake, and a heartbeat that dares to believe its destiny. In a world obsessed with perfection, Amara and Ryan's story was born out of imperfection, a single accidental moment that changed two lives forever. What began as a harmless mistake, a sleepy photo meant for a friend, became the spark that ignited a love both unexpected and extraordinary. Ryan Hale, the man known for his steel heart and corporate empire, found warmth and simplicity in a woman who wore honesty like an ornament, who didn't need diamonds or designer gowns to shine. And Amara, a girl who lived quietly behind her sketches, discovered that sometimes fate doesn't knock politely. It crashes through your comfort zone and turns your world upside down. Together, they learned that love doesn't wait for permission or perfection. It arrives in the unguarded moments, in laughter over midnight coffee, in text messages sent by mistake, in rain-soaked dinners and whispered promises under the stars. Their story wasn't about a billionaire and a designer. It was about two souls stripped of pretense, finding truth in vulnerability, and courage in connection. And in the end, it wasn't the mansion, the fame, or the world's approval that mattered. It was the message that came full circle. a reminder that sometimes the greatest love stories begin not with grand gestures, but with the smallest accidents that reveal who we truly are. Because destiny doesn't always send roses, sometimes it sends a photo in pajamas, and a heart that never looks back.